This cardigan started with something I didn't knit myself, a store-bought piece owned by my sister. When I plan a new knit, I usually start by looking at my wardrobe and trying to fill an actual gap. Over the last year, I realized that while I own a lot of sweaters and even quite a few summer knits, I don't actually have many cardigans. Another thing I always consider is technique. I like choosing projects that let me practice something or use it more intentionally. I've knitted a colorwork sweater before and smaller items like socks and hats, but I still feel like I could use more practice and also integrate colorwork more into my everyday wardrobe. While thinking about that, a specific piece came to mind. My sister owns a store-bought cardigan with a geometric colorwork section placed just above the hem. I've always loved it. She had it for years, so there's no way to buy it now, and that's when the idea came up. Why not use it as inspiration and design my own version? Just to be clear, I think it's completely fine to be inspired by store-bought garments and reinterpret them. I would never try to copy a knitting pattern. But analyzing a finished piece and translating elements of it into your own design feels like a natural part of the process to me. Once that idea was there, I knew I wanted to stay close to the neutrals and choose fairly calm colors. I had a gift card, the yarn was on sale, and I decided to go with the baby wool by We Are Knitters. A yarn I've used before and enjoy, even though it does spill over time. Because it was on sale, not all colors were available, so I chose sand as my main color and forest green as the contrast. If I had the full range, I probably would have gone with even more neutral with the main color, but I actually think this combination works really well. This yarn is made from 100% alpaca. Some of you might already know that I'm a big fan of alpaca yarns in general. It's very soft, has great temperature regulation properties, keeps its shape well, and doesn't smell when wet, which is something I really appreciate. This yarn will pill over time, but I have sweaters in this yarn that I've worn for several years and that are still in good condition, so that trade-off is fine with me. Since I worked with this yarn before, I'm not knitting a gauge swatch for this project. I'm using the numbers from previous projects instead. I'm also a very loose knitter, so I'll be using 4mm needles rather than the recommended 5mm. I almost always have to size down. I've tried things like wrapping the yarn around my finger twice, but that usually just cuts off circulation. So if you have any tips on how to knit more tightly without doing that, feel free to leave them in the comments, I'd really appreciate it. Because I'm working with a fixed amount of yarn and the color work will be placed in the lower half of the cardigan, I decided to go for a top-down construction. That way I can adjust the length depending on how much yarn I actually have left. I have 6 skeins of the main color. I'll definitely need about 5, but ideally I'd like the cardigan to be a bit longer, and colorwork usually uses more yarn as well. I'll be using the contiguous method. I used this for my boucle sweater and really liked it. And I think being able to see the shaping more clearly will make it even better for this project. I'm also looking forward to fine-tuning it more closely to my own measurements. For a cardigan, a drop shoulder construction would probably be the more common choice, but I don't love that fit on myself. I prefer a more set-in shoulder, and it's also closer to the original design that inspired this project. My current plan is to knit down to just under the bust and then work the sleeves first. I'll also be adding short row shaping in the back and most likely horizontal bust starts, but we'll see. I might still change things up as I go. This is my sister's store-bought cardigan. As you can see, it has this geometric colorwork section near the hem. It actually uses 2 contrast colors which are quite close to each other. I only be using one. My yarn is much thicker than the yarn used in the original piece, so I had to simplify the colorwork to make it work at a larger gauge. What I did was take the central elements, in this case the diamond shape and the triangles, and then adjust everything else around them. On paper, I'm quite happy with how it turned out, but of course it's only once I start knitting that we'll really see if it works. I'm not swatching the colorwork separately. I'm willing to redo it if I don't like it, and since it will be just above the ribbing, reknitting that section wouldn't affect the rest of the cardigan. So this is the plan for my colorwork cardigan. I'm fairly sure there will be changes along the way, but that is part of the process. In the next part, I'll most likely show you the numbers I'm working with and the cast on.